Good evening, everyone. I'm Archana Ramamoorthy, and I lead up security products for Workday. I was in Florence about 6 years ago with my husband, and this particular photo was taken at one of my favorite places in the world, Michelangelo Square, which is on top of a hill overlooking this beautiful city. It took me a lot of time to plan this vacation. We took with us stacks and stacks of papers, and we also lugged around with us an old iPhone, which was locked, that could only work in places that had free Wi-Fi. And we had a huge camera with us, and we couldn't converse with the local Italians that couldn't speak English. Fast forward about 6 years, and I was at the same spot this year with my husband. And the one thing that had changed as I was looking at the wondrous Duomo was I remembered how difficult it was for me to plan my previous vacation when compared to the current one. In this particular vacation, I took with me my Google Fi-enabled Pixel cell phone. I was able to take amazing pictures, and I was connected throughout the trip. I also realized that when I thought about planning the vacation itself, apps like Uber, Airbnb, Translate, and Pay made it so much easier for me to plan this particular vacation. In fact, I actually booked my hotel rooms in Rome from the airport using my cell phone. What that made me think about was the fact that so much has changed in 6 years, and technologists like you and I have actually made it possible for us to make our lives so much easier. And what we're experiencing today is a shrinkage in the horizon of certainty. The time period into the future upon which you can make reasonably accurate predictions is rapidly decreasing. And this has a profound impact on people like you and me, product managers and product leaders that are equipped and are responsible for making sure that we have a strategy and a roadmap for each one of our product areas. So it's important for us to think about the following. Are we taking this horizon of certainty into account? Are we making sure that our product roadmaps are actually current? And are we making sure that our teams understand that the pace of innovation is actually faster than before? And are we accounting for all of these when we're building our products? So, in the next few minutes, I want to take some time to talk to you about 3 key strategies that I have used as a product manager in order to make sure that my team and I are building successful products in today's age of fast growth. How many of you remember the Windows Phone? Yes, everyone does. So Microsoft had a very ambitious multi-year roadmap to make sure that they were merging or combining their desktop operating system with their mobile operating system and creating a fusion OS that could seamlessly handle tasks that were transferred by users from one device to another. Excellent idea in theory, right? We all have different devices, and we do transfer our work from one device to another. But the multi-year roadmap meant that when Microsoft was actually executing on this plan, they were not able to keep up with the feature parity of the iPhones and the Androids. And this multi-year roadmap actually led to the downfall of the Windows Phone. In this era of hyper change, roadmaps that span multiple years are typically rendered useless because they're mostly based on strategies and assumptions that are shaky. It's important to make sure that you have clear roadmaps defined for at most a year and have clearly stated assumptions that led to those prioritization decisions. And revisit these roadmaps every quarter and make sure that you're validating these assumptions as you're looking at these roadmaps. And I'm sure as product managers, we all juggle the 3 delicate parameters of features, velocity, and quality. Companies like Apple focus a lot on quality because they've built up their brand name, whereas companies like Facebook focus more on velocity because the world is changing fast. In this world where change is constant and the horizon of certainty is shrinking, it's important to skew towards velocity. There is no use in putting a product out that is highly polished, but whose sell-by date has already expired. So make sure that you're cutting down on your product features and you're shipping your features as soon as possible. And make sure that if you're thinking about your product, that you bring it down to the right MVP that people around you and your users are delighted to use. And if you're thinking that that's a compromise, think about the fact that the job of a product manager is nothing but a study of compromises in order to build out successful features. Disruptions happen all the time. But it's unfortunate that the nature of disruptions is fairly misunderstood. Companies don't go and build the next big social network or the next big search engine. In fact, they try to understand the core competencies of major players in the market space, and then try to understand the adjacent markets and the possibilities in those adjacent markets that they can try and attack. It's important, therefore, to understand as product managers that time is essence for you to dedicate in order to understand the adjacent markets. A classic example that comes to mind is that of Google and Facebook. So Google's core revenue, as you all know, comes from display ads and search ads. And if a frontal attack had to be performed on Google, it would be to actually build a search engine and then display ads on that search engine. And if you think about Google's core mission, it is to collect the world's information and to be able to render that information to people. And they did it beautifully with public information using their search engine. Facebook decided to collect the world's private information. Information important to you and me. Information that connects us as people, as friends, as family. And then, once the social network was big and strong, it was very easy for them to start showing ads in that particular market space. And Google actually had a 20% project called Orkut that was fairly successful in countries like India and Brazil, which account for about 20% of the world population, but they failed to see that there was a market space for them to go into their flank and take that opportunity. And now Facebook has about 30% of the digital ad market. In order to make sure that you don't have blind spots, it's important as product managers to involve your development teams and to be able to spend the time in order to explore external possibilities with hackathons or 20% projects. And this makes it possible for you to invest and investigate some of these areas that could be your adjacent market spaces without actually putting or pivoting your roadmap. And if you think that this is distraction from your core business or products that you could be building, think that this is your feedback loop in order for you to review your roadmaps quarterly and actually make pivots as needed. And from everything that I've talked about so far, I'm sure you've understood that I'm saying that change is always the constant. Like, that's the one thing that's constant, and it means that deprecation should be a part of your change process. It's important as product managers to think about how long your product is actually going to exist in the market and to bring your engineering teams along and make sure that deprecation is taken care of as part of your design principles. Coupling products and making sure that products actually coexist is going to make it very difficult for you to actually split things out when the time is right. An example that comes to mind is Android. When Google initially wanted to build the Android operating system, they were competing with iOS. And when they did that, what they did was they made the decision architecturally to build a monolith of the operating system along with their core APIs. And what this meant was every time a single API had to be upgraded, they also had to upgrade the operating system. And it made it very difficult for them to make a decision to change this because within the market space, there were so many people that were using the Android operating system. Eventually, after a lot of trouble, they did decide to split out the two components and have the Android open source platform and their Google mobile service APIs that split out the API components from the operating system components. Let's step back a little bit. If I go back 6 years, stand at Michelangelo Square, and if I actually have someone approach me and ask me, hey Archana, can you take an Uber and go back to the city center? I would be very confused. Why are these people asking me to go above when I'm already standing on top of a hill? And if someone came to me and asked me what ml is, I would say milliliters, measurement of liquid. I'm in Europe, the metric system. I wouldn't think that that's the word that's going to make people like her open up her wallet and give me money. And if we go back, and if someone told me or asked me if I was going to buy a Tesla, I would look at them and be like, what are you talking about? That's a genius. That's long dead. What are you talking about? Is there cloning? So the point is, things change so fast. And in 6 years, we see how much has changed. And we don't know what the next 6 years are going to bring. And in fact, with the changes that are happening and the pace of innovation, we don't even know what the next 3 years are going to hold for us. As product managers, when you think about this and think about the impact your products are going to have on the society and how much you can actually impact change, it's important to understand and embrace the fact that there is change in the first place, and make sure that your roadmaps are short, and make sure that your flanks are protected, and eventually make sure and understand that products are not here to last, and build products that are here for the future. So with that, I ask you one thing: think about your products, think about them as not being constant, and build for the future. Thank you.